Good morning. Thank you so much for joining me on this call. First of all, I want to thank Mara. Mara is my co-pilot, so she's going to be helping me navigate. And also, as we go through this presentation, if you have questions, just write in your presentation where it says questions, and she will let me know what your questions are. As much as I can, I want to make this an engaging session. But just to kick it off, I would like to say, when I think about proposal writing, for me, proposal writing reminds me of Kenny Rogers' hit back in the 80s, The Gambler. You know, you got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them. And so what we're going to do in this presentation is that we're going to talk to you about some strategies to help you to do that. And it's okay if you want to say ha ha, okay? So a little bit about me is that I have a BS degree from Coker College. I have a master's degree from Webster University. I have about 22 years of experience in HR and training, and actually that's how I got into proposal writing. I've been writing proposals for the last 10 years. Just to let you know that I do have industry experience. I was a subcontractor for WHS AD, which is in Washington, D.C., and they're the acquisition directorate in a subdivision of the Department of Defense. Also, I was a subcontractor for the Veteran Hospital, which is in Cheyenne, Wyoming. It was kind of scary flying across the Rockies, but it was an adventure. I was also a subcontractor for Army APMC, which is located here in Georgia. And so those are my credentials. What I want to do is just go into the training objectives. We're going to show you how to make a decision for go or no go, the basic elements of a solicitation, because that's important if you decide that you want to go ahead and pursue a bid for a solicitation. The 5 steps to the proposal process and the do's and don'ts of writing submitting a proposal. So before you begin to write, you need to know why you're going to write. So these are some things that you first need to assess. You need to assess the type of solicitation, and there are several types. You've got the request for a quote, you've got the request for proposal, you've got a what we call a blanket purchase agreement. So there are different types of proposals. There's also a sole source, meaning that there's minimum competition, but you still have to submit a bid. We're also going to talk about the forms you have to submit as well. With in the federal space, and this is the market that I'm talking about, is when you do proposals in the federal space, there are forms that are imperative for you to submit in order for your bid to be accepted. So, and also we'll talk about the requirements of solicitation. So as you do your assessment, you want to make sure that you take a look at all of the requirements to make sure that you know what you need to capture in your proposal. Also the work statement, which is the statement of work. You know, what is the work that has to be performed? Also in the proposal, you'll find a section that talks about the instructions and the guidelines. So once you've completed all of those steps, the next step is to take a look at the probability of a win. And so that's when we talk about a go, a no-go. For those of you who have registered for this presentation, if you would like to have a copy of our assessment tool to help you to determine a go or no-go, we can send that out to you for you to have, and you can use that as a reference tool.
We're actually going to stick it in the handouts here inside the presentation. So you'll have that as Renzi's going through it. So I'm actually attaching that file for you now.
You see why I have Mari as a co-pilot. She's great.
That's what I'm here for.
Okay. So if it's a goal, the next thing that you're going to do is that you're going to use this form that Mari is attaching, and you're going to decide and go through each one of those elements and grade yourself, because that gives you an idea of your probability of a win. So after you do that, the next steps are you going to organize a capture team. If it's a thumbs up, you want to organize your capture team. You're going to review to understand the customer's requirements and objectives. And basically, when you look at the statement of work, In the statement of work, it has all of the elements in there that the government or the customer is looking for. You want to make sure you become very, very familiar with that. And also, you want to take a look at the objectives. The statement of work tells you the work that has to be performed, but then when you look at the objectives, they tell you exactly what they're going to measure. Um, After you complete that, then you want to assess your competition and develop a win strategy. Next, you want to think about the pricing strategy, and I would like for you to make sure that if you can, you want to make sure you focus on this and underline your pricing strategy, because oftentimes if you don't win a proposal or a bid, sometimes it gets down to your pricing to make sure that your pricing is competitive. And there are a couple of solutions out there that you can use to take a look at pricing strategies. In one of those strategies that we use is that you can go to GovWin. I'm sorry, is it GovWin? Oh, US Spending.
U.S. spending.
I'm sorry, it's usspending.gov. And you can go to that resource to find out more about if there's an incumbent, and if there is, it'll give you an idea of what their bid is. You can also assess your progress in preliminary drafts to make sure that at this preliminary stage, you want to make sure that you go ahead and assess your progress. There are 5 phases to the proposal process. In the pre-proposal process, the first thing that you want to do is you're going to assign the proposal resources to develop a draft. And so oftentimes this could be, if you're in a large organization, it could be someone who is your technical writer, subject matter expert, or it could be someone who's in business development. But someone has to develop a draft. And if you're a small business, it probably would be you. The next step is that you want to review your solutions against the RFP. This is where you want to assess your capacity and capability. And if you do so, you also have to take in consideration if you don't have all of the capacity and capability to perform the work, then do you need to bring other people to the table to assist you? And we call that teaming. It could be a teaming agreement. In some cases, it might be a subcontractor, or it could be a joint venture. It just kind of depends on the nature, the size, and scope of the solicitation. Next, you want to finalize your proposal development plan, and then you want to plan a kickoff meeting for your team. It's so important that in a lot of ways you're kind of like a project manager. You have to assemble your team, and after you assemble your team, the next step is that you need to bring all of your resources to the table to formalize the process that you are bidding on that solicitation. And lastly, you're going to conduct a pre-proposal final review. Here again, sometimes when you think about submitting a bid, there are new developments, and sometimes those new developments come out the Q&A, what we call a question and answer. The government gives you a period of time where you can submit questions, and then they will respond to those questions in writing. And so from that, sometimes there are new developments to where you need to go back and take a look at it and talk to your team again to say, is it still a go for us to submit a bid for the proposal? The next stage is the proposal development phase. Here, you're going to confirm the bid decision. You're going to finalize and verify your team roles and responsibilities. You're going to take a look at your proposal outline. Sometimes with the proposal outline, there are several people who are developing it. As an example, it could be your subject matter expert who, from several departments, they will develop their outline to say the content that they need to add to the development or the structure of the outline. And so it may not always fall on just one person to do that, but it could be multiple people. I will give you a tip. Sometimes if you do have multiple people who are writing and providing content for the proposal, I would suggest that as far as the outline is concerned, that whoever is the project manager or whoever is the lead technical writer, that they would be the one to outline the proposal. Because sometimes what happens is that if there's not a checklist you have in place to make sure you capture everything, by having multiple people to give you or to develop that outline, things can fall between the cracks, okay? So I would suggest that you have one person to develop the outline, and then you can start having your team to build it out for you. Next, you're going to conduct a bid team kickoff meeting and assign roles and responsibilities. Just because you verify, your team's roles and responsibility does not mean that you've assigned it. Oftentimes in a department, there could be several people in that department. As an example, marketing. You have several people in the marketing department who have content to contribute to the proposal. But until you assign the roles and responsibility and you make them part of your work plan for building out that proposal, you're kind of in that area of where there are assumptions about who's contributing what. So it's so important that you assign the roles and responsibilities, and that's why I highlighted that in green. Next, you're going to finalize approach and begin writing your proposal. And this is where all of the members of your team who's going to be contributing content, they're giving you that information, and sometimes they're building it into the template. And in other cases, it just kind of depends on the structure of your organization or your team. They may be sending that information to you in order for you to build out the proposal. The next stage is that you want to review and approve your price proposal approach, and also to do a cost check. Sometimes if you are putting your cost proposal together and you're not aligning it against the statement of work and the deliverables, oftentimes you can put yourself in a position where you may underprice your proposal or overprice your proposal. So it's so important that you take the opportunity to do a cost check and make sure whoever's doing the estimation is that they're taking a look at, what the market. GSA is another place where you can also get an idea of what some of the cost margins are for the government. And lastly, you're going to conduct the proposal submission and bid review. And here again, you're using a checklist to cross-check against the statement of work as well as the instructions to make sure that you've captured everything that you need to submit in your proposal. And mind you, if you have questions, go ahead and raise your hand or type your questions in, and we'll come back to them.
And one quick thing while she goes to the other slide, the handout, one of the attendees had trouble with the handout, I guess on a Mac. It is an Excel file, and it's a version 97, so I don't know if maybe there's some kind of conversion you have to go through, because I'm a PC gal, not a Mac person, but that's just an aside there.
And while you do that, just to share with you some of my experiences, when I started proposal writing, initially what I did is I read the solicitation, and I said, okay, well, this is pretty easy to do. If you're pretty good at following the instructions, you just write to the proposal and that's it. Well, the first debriefing that I got from the procurement officer, from the contracting officer, he said, Renzi, your content looks great, but he said there's a lot of elements here that you missed. And I said, well, what kind of elements are you talking about? He said, well, it's obvious that you did not research, who we are as an agency. And so I said, well, everything I needed to know is in the solicitation. And he said, no, it's not. He said, what's in the solicitation is what we're looking for and what our need is. And so one of the tips that I want to give to you is that it is so important that you take the time when you get a solicitation. Don't just go to the statement of work. But take the time to read and look at the information that is included in the solicitation, and also look up the agency. Look up the agency to learn more about that agency. You know, what are some of the programs or initiatives they have in place. There's a lot of sites out there where you can look up agencies to see what some of their initiatives are. Because as you write your proposal, there are keywords that you want to use in the body of the content, because it shows that I can relate to you. You're giving back to them something that they're familiar with. And so that's where it takes, to be creative. And when I say being creative, not to be creative in the sense of writing poetry, okay? Not in that sense, but basically doing your market research, to find out as much as you can find out about that agency, because as they read through your proposal, it's important that they grab words that they're familiar with, phrases that they're familiar with. In some cases, I will go and use their logo in the body of the solicitation, because it's something that they recognize. If there's information about their mission, their vision, and their values, I wanted to pull out key information because I'm giving back to them something that they're familiar with. And the goal is that you want them to hold on to your proposal and read it, as opposed to putting it in the reject file. Because if they can't understand what you're saying, or what points that you're trying to make, or whatever the point of view of what you're trying to get over to them, if it's too difficult, they're going to set your proposal aside and move on to the next one. The slide that you have here in front of you is, I wanted to give you some background information so you'll know what the evaluators or the contracting officers are looking for. When you write a proposal, regardless of whether it's 25 pages or whether it's 125 pages, oftentimes for the government agency, they have a team of readers. They dissect the proposal and they pull it apart. You have someone or a team to look at the cost, and then you have a couple of teams who are pulling apart your proposal to take a look at your methodology and your approach. So when they're evaluating your proposal, these are the elements that they're looking for. They're looking for the technical approach to make sure, did your technical approach answer all the questions or items that was listed in the statement of work, okay? They're also going to take a look at your management approach. Oftentimes with the management approach, we have a tendency to think that it's all about the technical way that I'm going to do something. But they also take a look at the key personnel who that makes up your organization or make up your team. They also look at the stability of the team. Who are the key people that you bring into the table to perform the work? They're taking a look at that, and also they're taking a look at your past performance. When they're looking at your past performance, have you done work that is similar to what is in the statement of work? They're looking at that as well. And lastly, they're also going to take a look at cost. As I mentioned before, sometimes you can have the best technical approach, but if your cost is outside of the range in terms of what the government is looking for, they will reject your proposal. Also, sometimes small businesses will say, well, I just want the win. And so I'm willing to underbid everybody, okay? So if you underbid and the bid is too low, you will get a reject. You will also be rejected, because if you bid too low, one of the things the government take in consideration is that, will your proposal and the cost to do your proposal do the work, would it put the government at risk? And I'll give you an example of this. If you work in security and the incumbent has 50 people who are working a contract, three shifts for 7 days a week, And then you come back and say, well, I can do it for 30 people. I could do it with 30 people. And then you look at your costs, and from your perspective, you're saying, well, that's a huge savings to the government. But likewise, did you put the government at risk? One of the things you have to understand when you're bidding is that when you're bidding, it's not you're bidding about you. You're bidding because you're putting the government's best interest first. It's the priority. And so when you're bidding on the work, you're bidding in a way to say that my bid and my approach and the team that I have assembled is putting the government is a priority, and also I am minimizing the risk of the government to do business with me. So if you do a bid that is too low, I guess it's not inconceivable that you could get a response back to say that your bid was rejected. Okay? So those are some of the things you have to take in consideration when you're talking about bidding and coming up with a winning strategy.
This is a lot of good stuff so far. So does anyone have any questions? If you do, raise your hands, type your questions in the question box, and we're going to keep going along. Okay, no questions so far? So Renzi is going to continue on.
Okay, now once the next phase is post-submittal. Post-submittal this is where you're going to conduct a debriefing and a process review, and you're doing this with your team. Sometimes when you are working with a team of individuals who are, providing you with content, um, for me, sometimes the experience in the past has been like herding cats. Um, you've got, because you've got a team of individuals, you've got a team of personalities. It's important that they give you content. It's important that they take on their roles and responsibilities. It's important that everything is done timely. But you got to understand, like in project management, it's just not about the writing and putting the words on the pages. It's also about managing the process and managing your team. And so if you're taking on the role as the lead writer, or you're taking on the responsibility to say that you're the one, at the end of the day, you're responsible for the quality of the bid that you're submitting, you have to take that role pretty seriously to make sure that you're getting what you need. But also, the goal is that you want to achieve the outcome is a win. So those are some of the things that you have to take in consideration when you're managing a team of people who are providing you with content. So what happens if you don't win? Okay? Some people say, oh my God, I invested all of these hours, the time, the resources, and I didn't win. But what you don't understand is that sometimes the best carrot that you can get out of this whole experience is that if you don't win, you can request a debriefing with the contracting officer. And that means that is your one-on-one undivided attention from that contracting officer for you to be able to ask that contracting officer from their experience, from their perspective, what you did well, what could you improve. You can also, that's a great opportunity for you to develop a rapport with the contracting officer. Remember that old slogan, we do business with the people that we trust, we like, and know? This is an opportunity for you to talk to that contracting officer, to tell that contracting officer what your goals are. You know that your goal is to do business with their agency, and also to get some insight to say, what else can I do to build a rapport or to build a relationship with your agency? What are some other things that I can do besides submitting a proposal? Not so much in this workshop, but we cover it in a different webinar, is that we talk to our members and we give them strategies in terms of how to build relationships with contracting officers, because oftentimes if they know you, just like us, we do business with people we know, like, and trust. It's the same thing with the government also. But proposal also gets your foot in the door. But if you can go ahead and start developing those relationships, calling that contracting officer to say, in 2016 or in the third quarter of this year, what are some of the proposals do you anticipate that we can do? What are some simplified acquisitions that we can perform? Or what are some micro opportunities that you have available for small businesses? So those are just a few tips to tell you some of the things that we talk about in the webinar when we talk about building relationships with the government. Okay, now what I would like to do is switch over and talk about the do's and the don'ts. When we talk about the do's and the don'ts, these are a couple of things, and I can share some horror stories with you also. But first, I want to just talk about the do. Do write a proposal to solve a customer problem as they perceive them, not based on what you perceive. Never put in your proposal in writing or in a clause or brackets to the government to say, you failed to mention this or you failed to include this. Please do not add any red, bold lettering in your proposal to tell the government that they did something wrong. There's a time, a place, and a way in terms of how you do that without coming across
Arrogant.
Yeah, in an arrogant way. That's a very good way to say it. Yes. Okay. You want to give the customer everything asked for in their solicitation, down to the tiniest details. One thing you need to know about doing business with the government, it's all about following instructions. It's all about understanding, the repetition of doing things. So if you are not wired in that way and that you want to, kind of do a proposal based on how you think it should be done, likely your win rate will not be high. The problem in terms of you making an assumption about what the government needs or wants, that's very costly. Okay, you want to take the time to do the work. And when I say do the work, I mean do the research and review your content. On the front end, you want to make sure you do the research, and on the back end, you want to make sure that you review your content. And you want to have several passes where you're going through to read your content because you want to make sure that you're spot on in answering all of their needs. Next, you want to address each and every solicitation requirement, even if it appears to be meaningless on the surface, okay? Sometimes you have to think about the contracting officers. They are human just like we are. Sometimes I see solicitations that are put out by contracting specialists. They are great. They're fantastic. They capture everything you need to know. And other times you get a solicitation, as an example, I had one that's supposed to say human resources, but the contracting specialist said humana, okay? So there are times in where you can address those issues as they come up, like as in the Q&A. There are questions that you can ask to address the I guess you say the questions that you have or answers that you need in order for you to respond to the solicitation. You do want to explain how you will meet each and every requirement in a clear, concise manner. And I want to put underscore concise because oftentimes when we write, we have a tendency to say a lot without hitting all of the specific things that the government is asking for. So even when you do your edits, you want to go back through your proposal and take out words and run-on sentences that is not necessary. And lastly, you want to explain why you are unique, but only when you can do so by giving a convincing argument to say why you are unique and what you bring to the table. What are the things that set you aside or that are different about you than some of the other people in the market, okay? So those are some of the things you want to do when you think in terms of your competitors. And when I say do your research, also research your competitors as well, because that will help you to understand, what are the things that set you apart from your competitors. Okay, let's talk about the things that you don't want to do. You don't want to postpone the proposal outline in the writing of the first draft. Oftentimes when you do that, time is not your best friend when it comes to writing a proposal, okay? It has never failed me, but there's always something that comes up that you didn't plan for, okay? So the biggest problem that you can cause by waiting is that there's always an element that you didn't take into consideration. There's something that you didn't plan for. So you don't want to wait. If the team says that it's a go, then you want to utilize that time as much as possible. Ideally, if I can, I prefer to have anywhere between 2 to 3 weeks to do a proposal. Don't get caught up in the trap of thinking what the company is the answer. I'm sorry, don't get into the mistake of thinking that the company is the answer to the customer's prayers, because here again, you're not the only one who is responding to that proposal, so there are other people out there who's doing so as well. If you do think that you are the answers to the customer's prayer, here again, what have your research told you to what has your research provided in terms of their needs and in what's provided in the statement of work, but also how do you match that up with data from your company to show what your data is. Anytime that you can show data to validate your response or your solutions, it helps the government to take a look at you as a solution, as opposed to writing a lot of, I guess you say, things that are not measurable or tangible. Don't overuse boilerplate content. One of the things that you will realize is that as you continue to do solicitations, there's information about the company that is relatively repetitive. But don't make the mistake to say that you grab this content and then you don't modify that content specifically to the solicitation and what the government is asking for. Here again, this is an opportunity for you to insert keywords or phrases that the government or the agency can relate to. Don't write a novel. Keep it simple. You want to make sure that you're precise to the point. Make sure you're using data and information to back up your position, but don't have run-on conversations or long-winded proposals, because here again, if the contracting officer or the team can't get through the proposal and you're not answering the questions, you're going to end up in the reject file. Don't forget to sign and submit required forms and certifications and representations. And when I say certifications and reps, that's the document that you will find in SAM. And Murray, what does SAM stand for?
System for Award Management. That's System for Award Management.
Okay. And so that is all of the prerequisites that you put in place in order for you to identify the areas in terms of your base codes and your interests that points you to say that these are the interests that I have in submitting bids, that these are the core areas that I'm focused on. So all of those things are important in terms of making sure that you sign the forms and include your representations. When I say forms, oftentimes with the forms, one of the standard forms out there is 1449. This is a form that comes from the government where they complete the first half of the form, and then at the bottom half there's a place there for you to sign and date, but it also tells you if there's any particular set-asides, okay?
Okay. I believe we have a handout of that standard form that Renzi just mentioned, so I'm adding that to the presentation now in the handouts section. That is a Word document that'll be uploaded soon. Okay.
And the last bullet is don't forget the deadline to submit your proposal. And some people say, well, that's obvious. No, it's not. It's not obvious. I can tell you that some of the clients that I've assisted over the years is that they forget to submit their proposal before the deadline date. My practice is that I put it on my calendar, on my Outlook calendar, and I'll put the deadline date on the calendar, but then I'll put a final date that the proposal is supposed to be finished and wrapped up. I'll do like a 2 days out. So as an example, if it's due on the 15th, the drop dead deadline date will have everything in place will be the 13th. Because like I said, you need to make allowances for things that can go wrong. I've had situations where all of a sudden the printer decided that it doesn't want to work anymore, or the cartridge is out of ink. Those are some of the things that you can check along the way. Or you get a paper jam. There's a lot of things that can go wrong, but if you build into your timeline for those types of instances, you can still take care of those matters, but also make sure that you get your proposal submitted on time. Even if you're submitting your proposal by email, here again, given the size of your proposal, what if you have a large proposal and it doesn't go through? You may need time to zip that folder up or break it down into sections or send an email to the contracting officer to say, this is how I'm going to be submitting my proposal. I also, whenever I submit a proposal by email, I make sure that I do a delivery receipt and a read receipt, because that's your timestamp to say when your proposal was received, but also if there was any problems with your proposal being submitted via email, you'll get an error message. So those are a couple of other tips that you can use in terms of submitting your proposal. So at this time, what I would like to do is to turn it over to questions to see what questions you have.
Okay, so I am going to, generally when I open up all of the microphones, we get a lot of feedback, and I guess I have to do it individually. So what I'd like to do is grade school style. If you have a question, use the little button to raise your hand, and then I'll unmute you so that you can, so that we can answer the question for you. Can everybody find the little hand raise and just raise your hands real quick so we know that you found it? Because we don't want to leave any questions out. Okay. I don't see any hands going up. Does everyone? Okay, Diane, I see your hand. Okay, good. And you put it down. So that was just the test. And Andrew and Janice, alrighty. So everyone has found the little hand. Okay, so all the hands that are continue to be raised, I guess Tony is one of them. I'm going to unmute you, Tony, so that you can ask your question, okay? You're unmuted, Tony. Go ahead. Tony? Hello? Tony? I'll just answer the question in the how can we get in touch with the speaker? That's going to be on the next slide. So go ahead and hit the next slide. There you go. And then can you speak to RFPs? I think that's just a state thing. Yes, it may be. I'm going to open up your speaker, Crystal, so that we can answer that for you, okay? And your mic is unmuted, Crystal.
Hi, Crystal. How are you?
Hello, I'm good. How are you?
Good.
I just recently myself responded to an ERFP, and it was with the state. And I don't think I've ever seen anything with the federal that does that. Is it just a state thing?
Yeah, from what I know, it's a state thing. At the state level, you find different types of portals that they use to submit the proposal. There's SkyQuest, there is Oracle has a product. So there's several different platforms that you find at the state level. One of the things I'll tell you at the government level, there are security concerns at the state level that not, I mean, at the federal level, that may not be as stringent at the state level. So that's why there are portals like um, FBO. You can submit a bid through FBO, or you can submit it directly to the contracting officers when you in the federal space. But you don't have like you have the flexibility or some of the features that you have at the state or local level. Those are not the, it's not the same format at the federal level.
Okay. All righty. Does that answer your question, Crystal?
Yes, I'm good. Thank you.
Sweet. I'm going to put you back on mute. And does anyone else have any other questions? Again, raise your hand if you've got some questions, and we'll make sure we unmute you. And Tony's got a question. Is your mic working now, Tony? Or is that the same from before? Oops, yeah, that was me. Sorry. Anyone else with a question? No other questions from anyone? Oh, Belinda's got a question. Hey, Belinda, your mic is unmuted. I feel like a radio DJ.
Okay.
You're on the line with Government Contractors Association. How can we help you?
Well, thank you so much for having me.
No problem. I appreciate the call.
I wanted to ask, I submitted a proposal.
Did you like
Can you hear me?
Okay, we can now, yes.
Can you hear me?
We
Yes.
can now. Can you hear us? Belinda?
Okay.
Okay.
So yes. I submitted a proposal and I didn't win, and they haven't sent anything out yet to notify. It's just on their website. This was just this week. So I wanted to do the debriefing, and more than likely I will probably have to contact them because there wasn't a lot of information. This was with the county.
Okay.
So I appreciate some of the details that that you provided in here on how to address them and questions to ask about the proposal. So they have all the documentation and everything there. So generally, are these meetings, do you request it face-to-face, or is it a phone meeting?
The debriefing, I think it depends.
Yeah.
Okay.
It can be both. And oftentimes,
Because I'm new to this to proposal writing.
Did you,
End of it. I've done it.
Belinda, did you say the
I've been writing.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think we're having some audio issues.
I think there's something wrong with my reception here, so I should have used my phone.
No problem. Now, did you say that the opportunity was a local?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Are you able to hear us, Belinda?
Could you hear me?
We can hear you. We can hear you,
Yeah,
Belinda.
I can hear you now.
Okay, awesome.
Okay, good.
Okay. Did you say that the opportunity was a county opportunity?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. One thing.
It's local, so I just wanted to know how do they.
Okay, and the notification, you said that you didn't win, but they've not made the notification public yet?
Well, they haven't sent anything to me directly as a bid submitter. It's
Okay.
posted on their site. I haven't received anything yet. I wondered if it would be in writing or how they were going to communicate it, but when I made the request, I wanted to know what was appropriate to ask for, face-to-face, or they just do it by phone, a conference call, or how do they generally handle these?
So our first question is, how do you know you didn't win?
Because they presented a vendor to the commissioners to approve for that particular solicitation,
Okay.
and now they posted award on the solicitation site.
Okay, so online it's posted that the notice of intent to award or whatever has gone out.
Yes.
Okay, awesome.
okay. And so once and what you will do, they will, the second stage will be is that they will actually tell you who the vendor is that the award was given to. But I would suggest that you go ahead and reach out and send an email or call. And I like email because email is documentation. And so I like to do email is to say that you would like to request a debriefing and ask what are your procedures in requesting a debriefing, and also include, if it would be in writing, by phone, or in person.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
And
And I
go ahead, I'm sorry.
yeah, and that was my thought, to go ahead and be proactive and send it out. But then I was looking at something you said. It's like, well, I don't want them to think I was just being so, presume anything about how they're going to handle that. So
And
I didn't want to come off any
in
kind
that
of
regard, I don't think you're being presumptuous. One thing that I did when I submitted a bid with DeKalb County and wanted to debrief, because I'd already been with GCA and learned that that was something that was within my rights, I did request that I'd like to meet ideally in person. So I was proactive in that regard because, given the choice of two evils, they'd rather not meet with you face to face. But if you suggest that that's the way you'd prefer to meet, then they'll come back and let you know if they just can't accommodate that. And then they'll make a recommendation for phone or email.
And the
Okay, of course.
And the other thing that I would suggest is that sometimes the contracting officer, they have a lot on their plate. I'll do an initial request for debriefing, and then after a reasonable period of time, if I don't get a response, then in the same email, but in the memo section, in the subject section, I'll say second request and resend it, and then third request, because oftentimes when you do a second request, that's a trigger for them that they need to respond. Okay,
Right.
it gets their attention. So
Okay.
if you don't get a response, just don't say, okay, oh well, but follow up.
Yeah,
Follow up.
because these are
Oh, absolutely. That was not my intention. I invested a lot of time into doing that. So,
right.
no, I will be persisting,
Yes.
getting some response, because I do want to know what I could do better.
Awesome. So we do want to let you know, Renzi here is our in-house proposal writing expert, and we do offer proposal coaching and reviews. So if this is something that that you need more information about, we'd love to be able to help you. Just reach out to the number that you see on the screen to contact Renzi. And then we're going to, I don't know how to do a poll here. We were supposed to practice this beforehand. We wanted to send out a quick poll to everyone to ask. We just conducted a 2-day boot camp here over the weekend that was incredible, and Renzi spent about 2-3 hours reviewing proposal information. We've got a lot of great feedback from that, and have had a lot of people saying that we can do a whole 2 days just on proposal writing. So I'm trying to see if I can create a poll here to go into the audience. But we would like to get some feedback from you to find out if a proposal writing workshop that's 1 or 2 days would be something that would be beneficial for you as an attendee here. So.
And if you have any questions, if you have any questions about the proposal, what's covered in the content, I'll answer your questions now if you have any questions about that. Or you can write your questions into the box there where it says question, and we can answer your questions that way as well.
Okay. So any questions? Because I need to see hands so I know whose mic to unmute. Otherwise, we get a ton of feedback. Oh, we've got some hands raised. Oh, that's Belinda's hand still up. I forgot to lower. And I think that might be it. Any other questions that have come up? I know Tony asked a question a while ago as far as how to get in touch with the speaker, but I think he sees the information here on the screen, and so I can get rid of that question. Any other questions that we can answer for you now? We still have about 9 minutes. we do try to end right on time because we know you're taking your lunch break to do this, so we want to be respectful of that. Any other questions? Anyone who just can't find the hand button? Oh, we got another question. Hold on, Diane may have missed it, but are you putting the PowerPoint in the handout section? No, the PowerPoint isn't going in the handout section, Diane. What we do is we record these sessions, and it takes about an hour for us to get them into the queue, and the follow-up email that comes to you as an attendee will include the recording of the session, so you'll be able to see it all again. Okay? And then Sharon, hey, I thought I saw you join the line. So do you want to, if you can just give me a call after this, I don't know if you still have my number, but I'll shoot you an email when we finish up so that you can reach out to me, okay? Alrighty, so any other questions? Diane's question we answered. Sharon's question we answered. Okay. Anyone else with questions for right now? Oops, wait a minute, the poll. I just got a poll in, and I see we got another question that popped up. But manage polls. Okay, so we have just added a poll. So you can answer the question in the poll that's open. Oh, that's cool. Sorry, it's the little things, folks. Oh, Jacqueline, thank you so much. I appreciate you attending. Jacqueline said, great webinar. Yeah, we're trying to do some really good content for you. Make sure for those of you on the line next week, the webinar is going to be all about finding opportunities in the government space. So if you are, a prospective government contractor, then you definitely want to be on Abraham Sion. It shows that I'm him, but I'm not him. But he's going to be the one that's actually conducting that webinar. I'll be driving as usual, but he will be doing a lot of really cool stuff about how to find different opportunities and all of that good stuff. So you definitely want to join us next week. So look for the emails. Okay? And I don't know how the poll is in process. I don't know how you. Oh, I've got to close it. Oh, I need to close the poll. Okay. Show results. I don't know how that. Oh, okay. So 64% voted. This is cool. Of course, I don't know how to check the voting results, but that's just me. Okay, and Belinda Clark. Okay, so just go ahead and reach out to Renzi. You've got her contact information here. And thank you guys for joining us. I appreciate your time and attention. And definitely go to our website for all of our upcoming Wednesday webinars. We're here every week from 11:30 to 12:30, offering you something that's important to you as a current or prospective government contractor, whether it's about funding, proposal writing, certifications, and registrations, everything you need when it comes to contracting. That's what we're here to do and help you, learn how to make that a little easier as far as the process. So thanks so much for your time. I appreciate it, and we will talk to you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.